happening, people? Scarfy Spurs look here with episode number 8 of these weekly live shows every Monday, 8 p.m. Today, I'm joined by Ben and Wes. Firstly, Wes, how are you doing?
Yeah, not too bad, Harry. Yeah, thank you for the invite, the call up, and yeah, looking forward to this one. There's never ever a dull day, is there, supporting Spurs? So no,
there really never is. It's good to have you on. Ben, how are you doing?
Yeah, great, thanks. The Alistair Gold day off curse strikes again.
Absolutely, that was good. Funny to see. It always seems to happen. And I've just realised with that intro, I'm going to have to update it at some point and sadly take those pictures of Conte out. It's the same with the outro as well. So that would need changing at some point. That's a job for me. Before we crack into it, quick partnership message as usual. So partnership message for our new partners for the podcast, SecurityVPN. SecurityVPN is the premier choice for secure and private internet browsing. With the rise of online threats and surveillance, it's become more important than ever to protect your online identity and data. Their VPN service ensures that you can surf the internet without having to worry about prying prices. At SecurityVPN, they are committed to providing you with the highest level of security and privacy. Their VPN service is designed to protect your online activity from hackers, cyber criminals, and government civilians. With their VPN, you can browse the internet, access your favorite websites, and stream your favorite shows without any restrictions. Use the code SCARFY at checkout to get 25% off your first month. Now that's done. Let's crack into it and start with, well, actually, before we do that, don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you're new and leave a like if you like it and keep those comments coming. We will read them out. But let's start with what's probably going to be the biggest news that was announced yesterday, and that is Antonio Conte has left Tottenham by mutual consent, as they like to call it, whether it's that or whether it's get out the door, otherwise it's that, who knows. Christian Stellini will take the team as acting head coach for the remainder of the season with Brian Mason as assistant coach. So firstly, Wes, welcome on the podcast, your first time here, I believe. So give me your thoughts on this, nearly a day on.
Yeah, I think it was a case of when and not if. I think I was actually on a show at the weekend and I said he'd be gone by Wednesday. But, you know, I think it's strange to leave it, excuse me, almost like halfway through the international break. I think it would have perhaps made a bit more sense to do it at the start. But then I understand that these things take time. Believe it or not, there will be a lot of complications, I think, within not only somebody, a player or coach, manager, whatever you like, coming into the building, but also going out. I think there would have been some, discussions about compensation and getting the payoff and things like that. So I think that's probably what's held it up a little bit, so to speak. But I think, from a Spurs fan perspective, I think it was kind of inevitable after the rant, if you like, against Southampton. And it was definitely a feeling of, I saw the rant at the time. Well, I saw the rant and I thought my first initial thought was he would be lucky to be in a job Monday morning. That was my initial thought. And then I mellowed a little bit and went, if there's any players that are still at Tottenham that aren't on international duty, they better avoid him walking down the corridors and things like that. Keep your head down, get out of his way, because he was fuming. And I know obviously we're going to probably go into the rant and the ins and outs of it a little bit later. But yeah, I think it was a case of when and not if with Conte. Listen, am I gutted it didn't work out? Absolutely, because there was so much promise, especially last season. Making our best ever start to a Premier League season. There was a lot of positives and a lot of promise there. But I think at times it felt like, and bearing in mind Conte had only been with us, 16 months, it felt like we were only ever one game away from a disaster. And when we lost, and it kind of felt like he was doing us a favour by being with us. It was almost like, you need me more than I need you. And he was kind of playing that this is Daniel Levy's last roll of the dice in terms of getting those real top elite world-class managers. And that's the sort of feeling that I got with Antonio Conte. So I'm kind of left with a little bit of a mixed feeling about the fact that he has gone, to be fair.
Yeah, fair enough. Thank you, Wes, for that detailed explanation. I like that. Ben, do you agree? Was it a case of, when rather than if? Do you agree?
Oh yeah, I think the writing was on the wall from the minute he said the players were selfish and what he said about the board. I know there was that report saying he didn't mean it, but I'm not massively sure I buy that. It sounded like it to me, but yeah, I agree. I am very gutted that it's not worked out because I just feel it's such a missed opportunity with a manager like him, and it just kind of leaves you without much hope that any much is going to change if you can get Mourinho and Conte in who've won trophies everywhere they've been, and you still can't win anything at Spurs. It's just a bit depressing, really.
Absolutely. Chili says this is so relaxing to listen to. While revising, fantastic. Good luck with that revision. I like that comment. That's very good to hear. I want to know, Ben, coming back to you, did you find the timing strange that, halfway through an international break, like Wes pointed out, the fact it was 10:30 on a Sunday evening? I mean, it's probably the most unlikely time for someone to get sacked. You'd say usually during the day, usually a weekday. So, did the time of the departure, keep saying sacking, but they say it's mutual consent. Do you think it was the timing was strange, or did you expect it?
I didn't think it would happen straight away, but I didn't think it would take as long as that. I think it must be, if you think, I think I heard something saying that when he got sacked by Chelsea, he got like 20 million or something out of them in court. So I think Spurs are probably very cautious to try and avoid a situation like that, which is probably why it's taken so long. It would be my guess, but who knows, really. I think, all the reports you see about the players and how they feel about him, I think it was always going to happen. And like Wes said, it was just a case of when, not if. But in terms of mutually agreed, it's a difficult one because we've seen clubs say that before, and then the managers in the future have said, "No, I was sacked." But I don't know. I don't know. Only the club really.
Well, that's the truth. We can speculate as much as we like. Thank you, Ben. Wes, do you agree with what Ben said? Do you find the timing strange? And how do you think they came to that mutual agreement? Do you think it's pretty much a sacking, but they kind of said that, like Ben says, to avoid any aggravation with Conte? Because Conte, I think, for me, as a manager does probably doesn't want to be sacked. I mean, to take the money, but he kind of probably said to, this is how I picture it in my head, go, otherwise, you're being sacked. I mean, it's clear you don't want to be here. We don't want you here anymore. It's kind of, who wants you out quicker? So, Wes, do you agree?
I think in terms, listen, no manager, no head coach ever wants to sack. I can assure you of that. No one ever wants to sack. And I think it's always hard. It's always a hard and tough conversation anyway. But, Conte's contract was up in the summer. Let's not forget that. And it kind of felt like this was probably, in terms of doing it in an international window, the timing was probably suitable because now, Stellini, all right, he's Conte's number 2. He'd already been there anyway. But now between him and Mason, they've got a fresh sort of start, if you like, for going into the final push for the end of the season. And it was one of those where you kind of felt like Tottenham didn't want to pull the trigger on Conte because they'd have had to pay him off. Conte didn't want to walk because if he walked, he didn't get his payoff. And it felt like the last month or so in particular, it felt like the club and Conte were at such loggerheads that, like I say, you couldn't. It felt like it. Listen, I don't think it would have shocked any Spurs fan actually if Conte stayed till the end of the season. I know it was kind of the fact of, we're kind of waiting for him to go or whatever, but I genuinely think it wouldn't have shocked any Spurs fan if Conte stayed till the end of the season and just sort of seen it out. But I mean, I think there was loads of reports coming out over this week in particular about how toxic the training ground has been, and the players have pretty much checked out and aren't playing for him. And I think when you get to that stage at any football club, you have to make a change. The easier one is to change the manager because obviously we're not in the transfer window and it's really, really hard to change, 25, 28 or however many is in our squad. It's hard to change that amount of players. I know we'd all probably love that with half the dead wood that we've got in the in the club at the minute. So usually it's obviously the manager that gets the chop. But yeah, like I say, I think middle of an international break seems strange. I know we did it with Poch when we sacked him. It was in the middle of an international break, because usually you'd say do it at the start if you can, and give the new people or the interim manager that time then on the training pitch to, you know, work with the players and get them prepared how they want to for the next game. But I think we've got a couple of days extra grace because obviously we don't play till the Monday night. So I think that might help. You'd like to think the cause.
Yeah, thank you, Wes. I pretty much agree to everything you said there. Shout out to Matthew in the chat who's left a couple of comments. I like the one, Tottenham is the best team ever. I love that. I wish we were, to be fair. So, Ben, I know we've got differences in opinions, especially when it comes to Antonio Conte. So if you were in Daniel Levy's shoes, would you have sacked Conte? Would you have sacked Conte Sunday, or would you have waited to the end of the season? Is that the right call for you?
It's a very difficult one, to be honest, because to me it all depends on how the players have reacted. Because let's be honest, obviously they've probably done it with the thought of these players aren't going to play for him at all, so we're not going to get top 4 even if we keep him. Take that out, I would say obviously we're way more likely to get top 4 with him there. But is it a situation of that's not going to happen because of their relationship with him? We don't know. So I would argue yes, but because of what he said, yes, is what I would say. Basically, if he hadn't said that press conference, then I wouldn't have said. I would say no, without a doubt. Personally, I would have kept him if he hadn't said all that.
Yeah, no, I agree. Wes, right decision? Do you agree?
I think we'll probably look back on it. At the moment, it's still very raw, but I think at the moment, I think, like I say, it's still raw, but I think we'll look back on it and go, probably right call. But the only way we'll really know if it's the right call is not based on how we finish this season. It will be what we do next in terms of who comes in the building next and what resources they're going to have available to them. You know, in terms of players coming in terms of being able to get players out. Are they going to have a sporting director working with them? Are they not? Because there's rumours coming out today that, you know, Paratici might be on his way out come the end of the season. So I don't think, obviously the media will probably go, was it the right call? Was it not? You know, if we finish top 4, which I think is a big ask at the moment, given the situation surrounding everything at the club. If we finish top 4, you will probably turn around and say, well, it was justified because top 4 was hanging in the balance and we've managed to get over the line. If we don't, then I think the media will turn around and say, well, what was the point in sacking Conte, who had you 4th when you finished 5th or 6th? But yeah, I just think the way it ended with Conte was becoming toxic. Fans were getting bored of the football, and yeah, I think the fans were just speaking a little bit too loud for Levy's liking. And I know he doesn't particularly like it when the spotlight is on him, obviously with the Levy out stuff. But I think when the fans start booing the team and everything else, I think that's a bit of a red flag and an alarm bell for him. And yeah, I think, you know, fans had, like I say, just become bored and things like that. So yeah, I wouldn't say it was becoming a chore, but it was becoming a difficult watch as a fan. But yeah, I think in the long run, I would say it's probably the best choice.
Yeah, thank you both. Thank you, Wes. Just a little bit of statistic here for you. You know, this is an interesting one. So most points won in the Premier League since Antonio Conte became Tottenham manager. So Manchester City, as you expect, a top there with 134 points gained since Conte's arrival at Tottenham. Arsenal sit in second with 121 points, followed by Liverpool in third, actually, with 112. But we're in fourth with 4th with 105 points. So that brings me on to my question. How do you rate Conte's time overall, starting with you, Wes, at Tottenham overall? Whether the words to describe it, disappointing, average. I mean, you can have to think about this, Ben. You could be thinking why I ask Wes this. But I want you to rate it out of 10. And it's a difficult one because it'd be easier, wouldn't it, to rate last season and rate this season. But overall, Conte's time at Tottenham, rate it out of 10. Far away.
It's a difficult one because
It really is.
He hasn't had a full season. And it's the same with Mourinho. Mourinho never had a full season. And when he got the sack, I was asked the same question. I went, well, what are we judging him on? He hasn't had a full season.
Yeah.
What can we actually judge him on? If I was to put my neck on the line, I'd probably give it a 6.5, pushing towards a 7 maybe. Because I think people forget there was actually some really good times with Conte. You look at City away last season. Unbelievable performance. I was fortunate enough to be at the Etihad that night. It was unbelievable. Harry Kane destroyed Man City on his own. The way that we played at Old Trafford, I know we lost the game, but the way that we played at Old Trafford, again, I was at that game last season. I was confident at the time that we could go toe to toe with anyone in the league and give them a game. And I hadn't felt like that since Pochettino. So I think that was encouraging in itself. Obviously, the North London derby, unbelievable performance, unbelievable atmosphere in the ground. Liverpool away, again, another big performance last season. This season, all right, absolutely robbed the point away at Chelsea. Anybody tells me different, I don't know what game they're watching because we got absolutely murdered. I think the big games this year have been a bit of a disappointment in terms of the way we played. I know Liverpool seemed to be a bit of a bogey team to us. Arsenal at home, abysmal. Men against boys, literally. Yeah. They dominated us from start to finish, and it was really frustrating to see. I think United away, we gifted them that. City away, again, gifted them that. I'd say, obviously, based off last season, you'd probably give it, an 8? But the way this season has unfolded, it's probably dragged my rating down a little bit. So I'd probably say about a 6.5 out of 10 for Conte overall.
Thank you. 6.5 for Wes. Ben, I want to know your rating Conte's time overall, those 16 months he had in the end at Tottenham, that rating out of 10 and your quick summary like Wes gave at his time.
I would probably go 7.5, probably what I would say. So fairly similar. If it was off last season, like take out of this season, I would have said 9.5, 10, just from where he took us, where we were under Nuno, to somehow get top 4. And like you said, it is a bit of a miracle that we managed to get that, considering how many points Arsenal were ahead of us with games in hand as well. That was a real achievement that, let's be honest, we only did it because they bottled it. This season, I still think we've slightly overachieved this season, but I do feel some aspects do bring it down, like how the performances compared to last season, and I think has to drag it down, if I'm honest. But it's a difficult one. I don't want to bring them down too harsh because at the end of the day, we are still somehow 4th. But at the end of the day, it's not gone well this season. So I don't think you can really put it much harder than 8. The press conference alone, I'd just give him a 10 for everything he said. But if you take the football bit, 7.5.
Oh, fair enough. Thank you, Ben, and welcome. I believe your first time on the channel, Harry. Welcome. Someone has the same name as me. How are you doing?
Are we talking about Tottenham wise, or are we talking about just in general?
Well, either.
Well, there's never normal, as I say that meme, right? There's never a normal day supporting Tottenham. So
never.
I kind of expected Conte sacking, to be honest, after that presser, and I think it was just a matter of time, like when, not if, and it just happened last night. Eventually, whilst I was making a video about him going or not, actually.
That's great.
So like I'm quite sad about it, to be honest, because I just think another manager we kind of wasted. We've wasted a lot of managers, and it's like, and then to me it seems like like people want Mourinho to go a couple of years ago, and I remember telling people, be careful what you wish for, because we've got Nuno afterwards.
Yeah, it did go on, didn't it?
It feels like the same sort of thing. I just feel like we're just repeating the same cycles. So,
Yeah.
until something gets fixed above the managers, I don't think anything's going to change, really. So, yeah.
Fair enough. And Harry, does the timing of that contest, or departure, if you like, says by mutual consent, as they like to say, it says in the club statement, did the timing, obviously being 10:30 on a Sunday evening, surprise you at all? Because you say you're halfway through a video. Did that surprise you?
Because I was doing a video on Nagelsmann, right? Recording one.
Yeah.
And I posted it at like 11 o'clock today. And in that video, when I was recording it, I was saying, "Oh, we don't know if Conte's gone yet or not, so it's just speculation." and then like as soon as I finish it, like 10:30, the WhatsApp group just went mental, and I was like, "Okay, he's been sat then." But the timing's not really like that surprising, because it was during the international break. They could have announced it, I think, today, yesterday. I can't even think they could have even announced it on Saturday, but they kind of picked the end of the week, I guess, if you can put it that way. I mean, they could have done the start of the week. They could have done the end. I don't think it would have made that much of a difference, really. But also, I think the England players are coming back for international duty. Maybe that's why they did it then. I don't know. Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah, it's a good thought. Thank you, Harry. Wes, so Christian Stellini, end of the season, 10 games to go, as well as the club like to say, acting head coach until the end of the season, with Ryan Mason being his assistant. Do you think that's a good thing? Did it surprise you? Because for me, it certainly surprised me seeing that Stellini didn't go with Conte. I believe only one coaching staff, I think it was his brother or something, went with Conte. I was surprised to see Stellini stay. I thought almost like a bit of a package. So did that surprise you? Do you think it's a good thing, Wes?
Yeah, I think the Stellini staying is a bit of a surprise. Like you say, it's like it's Conte's right-hand man at the end of the day. It's his number 2. And usually when a manager gets the chop, his right-hand man goes with him. It was a little bit of a surprise. Having said that, I think actually the way we've probably played under when Stellini's been in the dugout is arguably, especially this season, is arguably better when Conte's been in the dugout, to be fair. But yeah, that one in particular surprised me, because I think every Spurs fan was sort of thinking, well, if Conte's going and we're not going to get somebody in, Ryan Mason till the end of the season. And I think we were like, okay, we were just sort of mentally preparing ourselves for it. But yeah, Stellini staying is a bit of a shock. Not massive. It was just a bit like, wow, okay, interesting. But then I've read somewhere that Conte's apparently given his blessing for him to stay and, to obviously try and help us get Champions League football. Whether people believe that or not, I don't know. But some things like that, you kind of have to take it as they come. But if that is the case, then like fair play to both Conte and Stellini. I think that shows the mark of them as people, over the fact that they are, obviously football coaches and football managers and things like that. I think it just shows the mark of them as people. And I don't think we should really forget that side of it in a hurry. Like I say, I was a little bit surprised, but yeah, hopefully it'll all work out for us.
Let's hope so. Thank you, Wes. Ben, surprised, like both of us, that, Stellini being the acting head coach, if you like, I have to keep saying, till the end of the season, or interim managers, some people would like to say. Did that surprise you? Because I mean, I certainly expected, I'm sure not the only one, expected him to go with Conte when his departure was announced.
Yeah, it was very, very weird, particularly considering how he's been with Conte at so many of his previous jobs in the past. That really, I like you said, I really thought there would have been a package, the two of them together. I know there was that report that Conte gave Stellini his blessing, but I would have thought, if anything, Stellini agreed with what Conte said. You would have thought, from their relationship with the two of them. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. Maybe he thought it was a brilliant opportunity for him as a manager, considering if Conte's just gone and the rest of the staff are all there, then maybe the club would have kept Conte if he hadn't said all of that. And then it's literally just a case of the man himself. Because it sounds like the players still like Stellini. It was just that they had a major problem with Conte. So it was very weird. But I think it's better than just having Ryan Mason, in terms of he's a bit more of an experienced sort of head, and he's been around a lot longer than Mason. So I do think it's a better situation than we could be in, but it's still quite a weird one. And like Wes said, we did actually play a lot better in all the other games, bar Sheffield United. We did a lot better in all the games he played. He was the manager. Sorry, we did a lot better in terms of. I think people were thinking maybe we seemed a bit more expressive and sort of not as scared to make an error and have Conte like absolutely berate them about it.
What about Wolves?
But yeah.
Wolves game?
Was Conte back for that? No, he wasn't. But to be fair,
No,
that
Conte
game
wasn't back.
We did play very well in the first. We played unbelievable in the first half of that game, and I do think we got quite unlucky in that game, if I'm honest. In fairness, but I don't think that was like one of the games we've seen this season where we've had like basically no sort of energy or anything. I do think that was a bit of an exception where we got particularly unlucky, I would say.
Okay, fair enough. Harry, did also, Stellini, interim head coach until the end of the season, did that surprise you? And do you think if he does well, it's a potential option that he could become permanent manager in the summer? Your thoughts on that?
I'm one of the people who didn't look too much into the performances under Stellini because I still believe that Conte had a massive influence over them and what his orders. But I do think Stellini comes off as like, I think I said this on someone else's stream, probably Tommy's actually, the good cop, bad cop thing. So like I heard from someone that apparently the players actually like Stellini because he's, I guess, a bit softer. And then because Conte's so like, hard into them.
Yeah.
Like if you hear the stories about what he says to players, like remember the incident with Diego Costa at Chelsea?
Oh yeah,
yeah. So he comes up as like the good cop because he's the coach, he's close to the players. So in the sense of that, it kind of does make sense to keep him on. But for him being a permanent coach in the future, I just don't see it happening because I think he's too loyal to Conte, and I just couldn't see Conte being like, okay, just take over where I was. It would seem a bit weird to me. I think the Mason assistant thing is quite a big thing to bring up because before when Mourinho was sacked, Mason took charge as like the manager, I remember, and he had someone else as assistant. But this time it's Stellini and Mason's the assistant. I think it's quite interesting. So they're obviously trying to train up Mason eventually. But I do think it's interesting in the sense that if I was there, I would have put someone like Harry Redknapp in for the last 10 games. And just giving them a completely fresh approach just for 10 games and just tell them to kind of let off the shackles and try something completely different. But the Stellini is sort of like the safer choice because he kind of knows the players. So I think they went that route. But long term, I don't see him staying long term. Personally, I think they're obviously looking at Nagelsmann, which is the headline of your video. So yeah,
fair enough. No, absolutely. And Harry, before I move on, so would you? All right, let's try and think how to put this. So, Conte's interview. Did you agree with what he said, and do you agree with the way he done it? Do you agree with him calling out the ball, calling the players lazy, and also the bit? I think some fans didn't like the bit where kind of said like getting top four would be like winning a trophy for this club, and kind of question like the club, almost like the history, if you like. So your thoughts generally on the interview? I think majority of Spurs fans agree with what he said. I certainly enjoyed it. So yeah, far away.
Okay, so I think we just take into consideration that Conte's English is like not as good as everyone else's.
Absolutely.
So his expressions and the way he says things are often like a bit broken. I say broken English. I guess that's the right word to say it.
Yeah,
like,
it is, yeah,
they are used to this, saying stuff like that. We'll say they're used to this, I guess. Anyway, but also I think it felt like to me he had a lot of things bottled up, and it got to a like breaking point where he just had to just release all this anger out in one presser, and it's just like he's obviously had these thoughts before, because for him to say stuff like 20 years the same owner, he obviously I don't know if you saw this, but he did watch the documentary before he came to Tottenham. So he did know the history of the club a lot more. And obviously he played Spurs before under Pochettino, and I remember him talking about us before. So it's obviously somewhere he'd looked at before he came. And I do believe that Manchester sees Tottenham as like attractive, but I think they kind of like get it's like they get promised stuff and they don't get it. And Conte has felt like for me just a lot of frustration just let out all at once. As with what he said about the club, I think it was absolutely spot on. No one can dispute the fact that we've had the same over 20 years and not actually won something meaningful. Because to him, I don't think he counts the League Cup, which is why he probably said that. In 20 years, no title.
2008, yeah.
Because to him, he sees like the title, and let's say like maybe the Champions League is like his honours, I guess maybe. And to us, like I take a League Cup, bite my hand off for that right now. But to him, it's probably like not worth anything for us. And like I fully agree with what he said, but immediately as soon as he finished our press conference, I knew he was going to get sacked. Like writing was on the wall, because whenever some managers come out and says something like that at Tottenham or even at any other club, really, I think they've just got to sack. So
definitely, 100%. Thank you, Harry. Wes, you wanted to dive deeper into that Conte interview. Agree with what he said? Do you know the manner, if you like, he done it, and what as soon as you done that interview, were you kind of just checking your phone? When's he going to get sacked? Was it only a matter of time after that interview? So, give your thoughts on the interview as a whole.
Yeah. Do I agree with what Conte has said? 100%. I don't think any Spurs fan could possibly disagree with anything that he has said regarding the players, because we know they're not good enough. The performance, yes, it was unacceptable, because you shouldn't lose a 2-goal lead no matter who you're playing against, never mind bottom of the league. The way he went about it, though, was a bit sticky, really, to be fair. I think there's certain things that you keep behind closed doors. And sort of calling the players selfish or whatever. I think that bit was the bit that I was like, right, okay, he's just having a go at everybody here. He was wanting to go out, and he's wanting to go out with a massive bang. But yeah, like I say, I can't disagree with him, because he's absolutely spot on. But as you know, and as every sort of football fan knows, you cross Daniel Levy, there's only one winner. And that is Daniel, unfortunately. So yeah, I think it was literally a case of, I think, as I said earlier, he was lucky to almost last this long, because I thought as soon as it happened, I thought he ain't in a job Monday morning. He ain't in a job Monday morning. Literally. But if he was in the job Monday morning, those players that were left, keep your head down and keep out of his way at all costs, because he would have had another pop at him, I would have thought, in the corridors, at the training ground. He'd have had another go at him. I'm confident of that. So, yeah, like I say, I completely agree with all the points he made. Whether it was the right thing to do at the right time, probably not. And yeah, listen, he was angry. He was fuming, like every Spurs fan was at dropping the points in that game. And yeah, he said it with his chest. That's for sure. He came out and said it with his chest. So yeah, like I say, he's gone out with a massive bang. That's for sure.
Absolutely.
I just want to say though, like with Conte, I think I'm Mediterranean myself, right? And not many people on here see me like angry and stuff, but the manner in which he did it doesn't surprise me as a Greek, because Italians and Greek were quite similar. Because he seemed like fuming, like the guy was fuming, and his expressions and the way he throws his hands around. I mean, I do that a lot as well, but like it's like it kind of like watching it. I was like, yeah, this guy is clearly like Mediterranean the way he was saying things, because I was like, this guy is fuming, because we're quite like passionate, and when the words come out, it's very like raw, and the way he says it is very raw, and like I could imagine like if I was in his position. And I'd had all this bottled up for months and months and months. The frustration with the board, frustration with the players he has, like it would come out like it came out. But as for the timing, I think it was just, to me, it was like a matter of time. It felt like to me. And then it just eventually happened.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. But Harry, did you want or expect, if you like, to see Conte perhaps take a little bit of responsibility, in that? Would you like to, like some fans say, oh, perhaps he should have apologised, he hasn't got everything right, for example, or, take a bit of responsibility? I mean, did you expect him to take responsibility in that interview? And do you think he should have? At the end of the day, he picks the team, he chooses the tactics.
But he did, you say that, but he did use the words we a lot. He said that we let down the fans,
No, he did,
But the thing is, I think he's frustrated that I know he's only a Spurs fan, right? But he's obviously watched us play before and like I said, he watched the All or Nothing documentary, and he saw the behaviour of some of the players like Dele Alli, for example, or others. And he saw, say, for example, someone like Son was like a really hard-working trainer. Kane was obviously Kane. I mean, it's Kane. He always works hard. And he knows that he's seen what the players were like before, because obviously he's played against us too as well. And I think that's why he kind of said that. He made a comment about the managers get shafted. I don't know what the comment exactly was, but it implied to me that the manager gets shafted for the players.
Yeah,
and in essence, this is something that I think, especially as someone who's been in Serie A and other clubs, he's probably not had that experience where he's felt like the players been ahead of him. Because obviously the manager's meant to be like the boss. But it's like, if you watch the documentary, it's almost like the players go to Levy if they had a problem. They wouldn't go straight to the manager. It's hard to explain. So it's like you're in a job and it's like you have someone above you, but you have like a line manager. So naturally you'd expect, I know, sorry, I'm getting deep into this, but naturally you'd expect, say, like a player would go to the manager first if he had a problem, not go to like right at the top. Like if you had a problem with someone, you go speak to them directly, wouldn't you? I don't know. That's just me. But it's like they bypassed the manager in the documentary. Like Danny Rose went to Levy, Endo Banega meetings with Levy, and it's that sort of thing. And obviously, it's clearly still happening because the players are still here. And we sacked the manager. So
yeah, definitely. Ben, I think I know what you're going to say, Ben. I think we have this discussion daily. But do you think that Conte should have taken that responsibility in the interview? You know what I think, but I mean, I agree with a lot of what he said, but I personally think that as a manager, sometimes you got to hold your hands up. I pick the team, I choose the tactics. Perhaps it's not working. Perhaps I'm too stubborn. Should change the formation. Did you expect and want him to take that responsibility in the interview, regardless of what you agreed with at the time?
I don't think he's totally blameless, but I think he's very, very low down on the list of problems at the time, if I'm honest. But I don't think he's totally blameless, but I would just say I don't think he was anywhere near the main issue at the club. And you could argue him being sacked in terms of the players' reaction kind of proves everything he said correct.
Yeah, in a way, yeah. No, I think that about the attitude. And I mean, I'm someone who believes you should always play for your manager right to the very end. You don't believe in them. He's still, halfway through a season. Now, this time, moving on to answer some questions onto people put forward for the podcast this evening. Something new, haven't done. Put that tweet out. We've got a few replies, so go through that. The first question, and I'll come to you first, Wes. Is project manager fancy talk for don't have high expectations for next season? Seems like a ready-made excuse for the average. So, yeah, if you can feel free to answer that question about project manager. Is it like a fancy term, if you like?
Well, firstly, we're not in The Apprentice, so we don't really need a project manager. Do you know what I mean? But no, in all seriousness, I get the term project manager, but it really shouldn't be done in that way. It's almost like, okay, I think every manager has their own project. We've had two managers in Mourinho and Conte whose project is to win, and the manager before was probably the only one that got afforded the time to build a football club. The one since tried to build teams, and I think that's been the biggest difference at Tottenham in the last few years. I think, listen, I wanted Ten Hag after Mourinho got the sack because he's one that builds a football club. I'm looking and thinking of who I want in next. I've been absolutely battered for it, by the way. But I really like the thought of Brendan Rodgers again, somebody who can build a football club, you know, from top to bottom, implement a philosophy that runs right the way through the club, plays good football. I think every fan that has seen his Leicester teams, Liverpool when they come close to winning the league, Swansea in particular, plays really good football. Brings through young players. You look at Luke Thomas, Keenan Dewsbury Hall, bought James Justin for next to nothing, gave Harvey Barnes made Harvey Barnes a Premier League player because he was out on loan here, there and everywhere. And has got a little bit of credit in the bank, won something fairly recently as well. Let's not forget, the FA Cup with Leicester. But I think failing that, obviously the main man that's the title of the show, Julian Nagelsmann, again, somebody who can implement everything from top to bottom. Obviously, I call him the gaffer. Poch was the last one that was able to do that and was afforded the time to do that. But I think that term like project manager, there's too many grey areas with it. You're either going to have somebody who's here for the here and now, like we've just had, or you're going to go for somebody that you go, actually, we're going to stick with them for a good few years and let them build a football club. So I guess that's probably where the term project comes in. But yeah, like I say, it's every manager has a project. So regardless of who we get in, they're all going to have their own projects.
No, absolutely. Thank you, Wes. So James, who left that comment earlier, replied to that on Twitter. If you're watching, there's your answer from Wes. So feel free to get involved in the comments. Next question I'm going to give to you, Harry, from John. Does this mean change of formation with Ryan Mason and Stellini to the end of the season for you? Do you think that will happen?
People are not going to like this, but I don't think the formation is going to change.
No, I don't.
I think Stellini is going to stick with a 3-4-3. And because if Mason was in charge, like fully in charge of the manager, I'd say he'd go 4-2-3-1 or 4-4-2 or something like that. But because Stellini is the manager still, and to me, the whole sacking comes across as like I think there's a reason why Stellini is in charge, not just because of the safety net of that he knows the players. I do think it's because they can pay Conte less or something. I do think there's something in that, in the sense that he's kind of been put on gardening leave. That's a theory going around. Because why else would Stellini still be here? It seems a bit weird to me. Even with the whole safety argument I pushed before, I do think it's a bit strange. But I do think
save money some way.
yeah, he's got to save money somehow. But I do think it'll be 3-4-3 and 3-5-2. I don't think it will change to a 4-2-3-1 or 4-4-2 or anything like that. Because if it was someone else, like if it was Mason in charge, like fully in charge as the manager, I think we would see something different. Or even like I said, Harry Redknapp, I wonder for him for the last 10 games. But like Palace brought back Hodgson, yeah. Bring back Harry.
Yeah, another Harry. Yeah, I have to get him on.
Yeah.
Thank you for your reply, Harry. Ben, next question for you. Will Sonny play in his favourite position now, obviously with the 10 games, or do you think that not much will change in terms for Son? Do you think he'd play the same position?
Yeah, I agree. I don't see the formation really changing, if I'm honest. I don't think it'll be an awful lot of difference. I think it just depends if the whole team react or not. Like if the whole team get a buzz from it temporarily, or if they don't, I really don't think it'll be that different, to be honest. I really don't see I don't know, if I'm honest, about if it'll make a difference. If Stellini being in charge, I don't know if it'll make a difference or not. But I don't think the formation will change or anything like that.
No, thank you. Fair enough. And the other question from John, will the shackles be let off about Conte being gone? We kind of answered that. I think we all kind of think that not much will change. It'll be the same thing. Stellini, I think, having worked under Conte, for a long time now with previous jobs as well, I think he knows Conte, he knows his system. I mean, when Conte wasn't here, it's pretty much the same, wasn't it? Stellini, certainly formation-wise, tactics very similar. Harry, come back to you for the next question. But slightly change of topic. When will the ENIC out protest get numbers? Real Estate asked that.
That's a good question. Because I'm part of it. You know what? Every time people say, "Oh, well, it's the last chance for Levy with Conte," but then people who say that often go against their words. So it's like, I can't tell you a time frame. I wish I could. I wish it was tomorrow, but until you hear like there's 1,000 people at a protest, I don't see it getting bigger, because that
Do you think
number
it'll
to me
happen
is like
soon?
the golden number. If there's 1,000 people, I think more people just naturally, it will just double and triple. Like, I think it will just go crazy.
When
But
do you think
right
that'll
now we're only
happen?
getting like 100 people, so
Yeah.
it's like, and until all these people on Twitter, YouTube, whatever, who are in account all turn up at the same time. Like, I'm talking these big Spurs YouTube channels that have loads of subscribers who are very Levy out, and
They never
they
do.
might say they Levy out in chats, and they might say they Levy out on Twitter or whatever. Until they all turn up,
That's
I
what
don't see them
that's
making
what
it
I
better.
tried to say. I get a load of stick for it. I mean, people call out the board, they call out Levy, they call out Enoch, they give it the big
I've been
one
to
if you
3
like.
protests myself,
But
but it's
yeah, fair enough.
disheartening when you go there and there's like 60 people.
Yeah, and fair enough. And fair play to the fans who do turn up. They clearly care about the club, have the best interest of the club.
Because you
It
know Brian Daigle and Stell and that group.
Yeah, I think they do a fantastic
They're
job.
like diehard Levy outs. Like, I'm been Levy out since
Absolutely,
2012.
you get people like hyping it up, like you say, those big Spurs accounts, and then they don't turn up. For me, it's hypocritical.
I'm not saying the people that do
Wes,
hype it up. I'm saying the people who are in the comments and like.
Yeah, no, as well. Yeah,
they're
I
the
think
people
both.
that need to stand up more, because the people who do these massive hypes, normally people who turn up 99% of the time. It's just if you're saying in the comments, turn up. There's like 10,000 subscribers on the channel. Just turn up.
Yeah, no, that would certainly make it easier. Wes, going to come back to you for the next question from Chris. Will I enjoy going to watch my club again? Do you think we'll be able to enjoy watching Spurs? I mean, some people say that since 2019 they haven't been able to enjoy watching Spurs. I'd partly disagree for me, because I think last season we had magical moments like against Arsenal. We had fantastic games like that where it's been great to watch. We've taken the game to Arsenal, but generally, when do you think we will be able to, if that's how you feel, when do you think we'll be able to watch our club again, if you like?
I think it's a question without an answer. I'm not going to lie, because my version of enjoyment will be different to Ben's and Harry's and yourself, Harry, as well. I think we were just really, really fortunate that Pochettino, and I think Jamie Carragher summed this up on a Monday Night Football not long ago. I think this was when Mourinho was in charge, actually. He said Pochettino made Tottenham fans believe that we could win the biggest trophies. We never thought that we were able to do it, but he made us believe that we actually could. And of course, we came so close to doing it in the Champions League, and coming close to winning a Premier League. Like, I think for most Spurs fans, it was unheard. It was uncharted territory. We didn't know what we were doing. Like, I think most of us rocked up in Madrid and we were like, "We're here. Sod it. Let's have a good time." We were kind of like it was almost like we'd won a competition off the back of a cereal box for that Champions League final. Do you know what I mean? We kind of turned up and we were like, couldn't believe our luck. This was like, it's as good as it's going to get. But yeah, I think in terms of that enjoyment and the club feeling really connected, I think Conte brought that straight away when he first rocked up. I think it's the challenge, I suppose, of the next person, whether that is bringing back Poch, whether that is a Nagelsmann or whoever is coming in the door. They have to assert their authority on us as fans, onto the players and the staff in and around the training ground every day. And I think, Mourinho done it to a certain degree, but we know Mourinho can rub people up the wrong way. We've seen that in the documentary, especially with Danny Rose, who's still waiting to hear from Milan, by the way. Again, I think Conte has that aura about him to do it, but again, it's clearly rubbed people up the wrong way. So I think as long as it seems like really strange, but as long as the next coach has got some interpersonal skills and that can sympathise and empathise with people, I think we'll be in a better place. But I think there's a lot of work to do for whoever comes in between, whenever they get looks, obviously end of the season, when they come in the summer. And obviously until August in particular, but it could be a good couple of years yet, I think, before we start to see the fruits of the labour, hopefully, because we've not had a manager complete a full season since the Champions League final. So a bit of continuity and a bit of stability wouldn't go amiss right now. And I think once we get that, then we can start going in hopefully moving forwards and going in the right direction. And then we can enjoy watching the football again. It was the same story under Pochettino, because obviously he wasn't far off potentially getting the chop. Let's not forget. And, we won that game against Villa and everything changed and gave Spurs fans arguably the best moment of their lives. So, yeah, we've got to stick with the next person for a little bit. That's for sure.
Absolutely. Thank you, Wes. And responding to this comment overall from Chile, who's been, thank you for listening in, Chile. I know you've been here right from the start. Do you think Spurs will play around ball now Conte is gone? I think we've all kind of generally said that we don't think that much is going to change. I said that, Stellini's worked with Conte long enough, and when Stellini had to step in, when Conte was away in Italy recovering from his gallbladder surgery, not many things change in terms of formation, in terms of tactics. So generally, I think we can all agree that we don't think that much is going to change, but who knows? Ben, I'm going to throw this at you. This question from Watsy is quite a lengthy one. If Stellini and Mason, or this could be, you can make it Stellini or you can make it Mason, do a good job until the end of the season. Do you see Levy offering them the full-time job? Let's say that'd probably be getting top 4. I mean, we know how much Levy likes that, thinks it's a trophy. Or will we appoint a new manager in the summer? And what would be your preference?
I'd love to say a definite no, but this is Tottenham Hotspur we're talking about. Nothing is impossible. Nothing, no matter how ludicrous an idea, not saying this is, but as a general, no matter how ludicrous something might be, it's always possible at this club. That would not be something that I would. I mean, if they did amazingly well, maybe, but I'll be honest, I don't think that's going to happen. I'd love to be proved wrong. I personally wouldn't do it, because I do feel that, like I said, I'm not sure much is going to change. And I do feel that the club just needs a reset. And I feel like we say this every time. That's the problem. We say this every 18 months. The club needs a reset. So, yeah, I don't think that's going to happen. I'll be honest. I don't see that happening. I'd be gobsmacked if that did happen. So I do think we'll be getting somebody in. But what we just need to not do is not have a repeat of the Nuno summer, where we spent too long trying to get somebody in and we ended up with a 57th choice. So I think that's like I want us to do what Man U did last season. Yeah. I want us to do what Man U did last season and have Ten Hag there watching the games in the stands 2 games before. That's what I want to see. I don't want to see us get mid-July and we still don't even have a manager yet, like last time. And also, Harry, back on your earlier question, if we did change the formation and stuff at the moment with injuries, who's going to play left back?
Yeah, but exactly. But question for you, Ben, I'm going to quickly throw this in there, slightly off topic. Whose fault it is that we don't have cover? Like, for example, in the wing-back positions, you put that on Levy for perhaps the recruitment, the investment. You put that on Conte, perhaps for working them too hard in training. What would you put that down to? People like to pass the blame a lot. I think it's a perfectly good question. I mean, whose fault is it that we come down to these lack of options? We're having to rely on the likes of, I don't know, Dyer to our main man, if you like. In defence, you're having to rely on players to step in. I mean, Skips, I think, come in and done a fantastic job. But, the thought of that we got, Davis, Sessegnon's still not back. I think Emerson was pretty much been ruled out today, end of the season. We went from 4 right wing backs to 1 right wing back in the space of a month. So whose fault do you put it down to, Ben?
To be honest, with the left back situation, obviously you can put it down to Levy in terms of people like Sessegnon. They've been injury prone for a while, but to be honest, it is bad luck in terms of if you look at just this one-off situation, it is just bad luck, if I'm honest. But in terms of the quality of the left backs when they are fit, and that's obviously down to Levy. But in terms of injuries and availability at the moment, that's just bad luck.
No, absolutely fair enough. Will all these changes affect the top 4 chances? I think I'll answer this final question. I don't think it would change much, but I think it's a slight positive thing, if you like. Perhaps the fact that if it's true, which it seems like it is, that the players got fed up with Conte in the end. Personally, like I said, I think that's wrong. You should always play for your manager. But I think that if the players do like Stellini, I mean, Ryan Mason as well, I think someone who you'd hope they want to play for and have respect for as well, in terms of they can feel like, you're one of us, if you like, instead of with Conte, you're right up here and you'll think you're right above here. Perhaps someone that like, for example, at school, they often say to you, having a student speak to a student works better than a teacher speaking to a student, because they feel that's on that type of level. That's the way I kind of look at it. But I think slightly positive thing, but I don't think it would change much, to be honest with you. And the final question is basically, do you think the formation style will change a bit since Conte's gone? We pretty much covered that. We don't think it will. So moving on to managers situation for this summer. I want to know. I'm going to throw a question in there for all of you. Go one round at a time. I'm going to ask you this question. I'm going to throw this in here. Would you consider, do you think we should go for, potentially take the risk, if you like, and go for a young, progressive coach with like a long-term project, works well with younger players? I think it's an interesting and perfectly reasonable question. For example, you've got Vincent Kompany for Burnley, who's done a fantastic job. All of these will be taking a risk, by the way. You've got Michael Carrick. I mean, look what he's done at Middlesbrough. Fantastic job, in my opinion. Ryan Mason's another one. People throw a couple of names in there. So, Wes, you're nodding. Would you be willing to consider that, and how drawn to that idea are you? I mean, because Pochettino was the closest you call probably at Spurs, and end up being the longest term. Do you want to see us playing that great football, younger players, and that long-term project? Because it could, of course, not work out. I mean, he could be like Nuno, couldn't he? He could be gone within 5 minutes. But would you take the risk?
Listen, I think when you appoint any manager of a football club, it's a risk. It's a risk anyway. I love what Vincent Kompany has done at Burnley. Like, seriously love it, because 14 out the door, 12 in, basically had to rebuild a whole football club and structure and everything else, and has done it superbly and has absolutely stormed the Championship, which is not an easy league. I like Michael Carrick in terms of the work he's doing at Borough. Again, took over them from 22nd, I think, in the Championship. They're now, 4th? Remarkable. Having said that, you try and convince most of us that they are the best fit for our football club right now, when we've had, 3 world-class managers and 3 top elite managers in the last, 5 years. I don't think it sits well with a lot of fans that we then go from Conte to Kompany or Carrick, and that's no disrespect to them too, because, as I've said, the work they're doing in the Championship is brilliant at the minute. But there's one thing managing in the Championship, and there's another thing managing a club who is perceived to be one of the big 6 in the Premier League. Completely different. I think, example of that to a certain degree is Graham Potter. Done a wonderful job at Brighton, got them playing some unbelievable football. Struggling now with the step up of managing Chelsea, because the expectation is completely different. At Chelsea, you're expected to win, and when you don't win, things don't go well. So would I take the risk on that? Probably not. But like I say, any manager's a risk, and I think it will end up being a straight shootout between Mr. Nagelsmann and Mr. Pochettino.
Yeah, no, definitely. Ben, I want to know your opinion on this, because, I mean, we speak a lot, don't we, daily, publicly and privately, but I don't know if we've discussed, the long-term option of going for that, what I call long-term project manager. So Ben, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think we do need to steer towards a manager with attacking football, but the problem is, like, you're going to have to just back them, even if it's horrible to begin with. Because if you look at that squad now, we've got a squad of 5 different managers worth. You've got Nuno, Pochettino, I can't count, Mourinho and Conte, and 4 managers you've got players of there. And if you think also all the players that have got come back on loan, we've got like 8-9 players coming back on loan they're also a mix. Do you think how they're going to have to sort all of that out? And I think we're going to have to go to that sort of manager and just back them regardless. Because at the moment, we're not going to play amazing football and win every week with the technical ability we've got in the squad at the moment. That's just not how it works. We're not going to be able to play amazing football brilliantly with the current squad we have and be winning week in, week out, etc. So I know people easily say, oh yeah, I'm going to back this manager regardless. But in 18 months' time, when it's not going well, are people really going to do that? It's very easy for people to say that now, as people have done that in the past. People say with Conte, I can put up with the football for win stuff, and this is mainly, obviously not the press conference, but people have been complaining for months about the football. But 18 months ago, they said, "Oh, I'm not fussed by it. If we win something."
I agree, but Ben, on the flip side to that, do you think some of us fans are part of the problem in terms of with patience? I think patience. I mean, like for example, giving you an example to put it into a bit of context, Arsenal with Arteta, I don't think their fans are ever patient, but the board were patient. I think you've got, for me, I hate to use the example, but Arsenal's board care best, I think, about the football club. We've got a board who cares more about the business and trying to be this world-recognized multi-brand, almost like warehouse store, if you like. It's ridiculous, or Dave would say on Park Game Podcast, property portfolio, which I love that example and always use. So Ben, does that factor in it?
Yeah, definitely. I would say it partly comes from the fan of Arsenal. I think their owners bottled it after that massive protest they had. I think there were thousands of people outside the Emirates, and all of a sudden they decided to back a manager and spend money because they bottled it. You got that Daniel Ek, who was there basically saying, who basically, when it was going wrong, came out and said, "Oh, I've got loads more money. I'm going to buy the club." The Kroenkes didn't then want to lose their revenue stream, in effect, in Arsenal, and because of the protest, they then took action from it. And I do agree. The fan base is. I'm not going to slate loads of fans because everyone's got a right to their opinion, but in my opinion, the fan base patience is quite a major issue, if I'm honest.
I love this comment. At this point, bringing a bloke that runs Chick King as manager, we're done out of here. A massive shout out to Matthew in the chat. He says, podcast is amazing. Keep up the effort. Everyone in the comments. Scarfy Spurs Talk, Mondays, 8 p.m. Weekends is Park Lane Podcast. But yeah, thank you for that, Matthew. So basically, that comment, but I'm also going to go back to from Alex, which Harry looked like you agree with. I'm going to agree with as well. Must be something to do with the name, where Alex says, "Should have backed Pochettino." Yeah, complete waste of 4 years. Levy will never back a manager. He never backed our best manager, Poch. Nothing would change. Ben, I want to know your thoughts on this and why Mourinho and Conte haven't won at Tottenham. You've got to give me a reason.
No, I totally. Levy had not been backed. There's a difference between money spent and being backed, is what I always say. Is because Jose in that big summer, Jose, I think we've only got one player from that summer still in Højbjerg. Reguilon, we don't really know about it, but did he really want Doherty? Did he? No, I mean Mourinho.
He did want Doherty, to be fair. He did want Doherty, to be fair.
True. Yeah. To be fair, we all thought Doherty was going to be a success from his time at Wolves.
I didn't.
But obviously,
I did. I actually liked Doherty at Wolves.
I did.
Ben, what do I think of Doherty?
You think he's a championship player?
Absolutely.
Did Mourinho want Bale? Did Mourinho
no, he didn't want Bale.
Probably not. No,
he didn't want Rodon either. I guarantee you that.
Yeah, exactly. He wanted Skriniar, and he got Rodon. Conte wanted Bastoni or Gavardio, and he got Clement Longley.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you, Ben. But I've got another question to contradict this argument. Do you think the likes of Mourinho and Conte, those elite managers, proven winners? I don't really like the title elite managers, but that's the title most people give them. Do you think they should be getting more out of the squad, considering they're so elite? Should they be getting more out of this squad? Because I personally think that Conte, I think Levy's a lot to blame for. I think recruitment's been terrible, but however, I think more should be got out of this current squad. I think Conte underachieved this season. Last season, massively overachieved. I think that was clear to see. But this season, I think there's this massive.
Has he underachieved though? We're still in fourth.
I think
Where we were last season.
But I think that's only because of the likes of Liverpool and Chelsea. I mean,
you could argue last season the same thing happened.
No, but if Brighton win their
That's
3
the
games
same
in hand, they go up 2 points above us. So might be partly to do with that. But Ben, I want to know. I always have an opposite opinion to your little argument in there. So I want to know, should they be getting more out of the squad? You call them elite managers. You like Conte. Should he be doing more?
I think we're overachieving. I'm still sticking with that. In my opinion, I genuinely believe there aren't many managers that could get this team to be in the top 4. I know you say about other teams, but that's the same last
Poch
season.
done it for 5 seasons in a row with a worse squad. I think.
No, that's debatable.
No, that was
maybe.
Yeah, but that team we had
aging squad.
Walker.
Do you sort of see the defense that Poch had compared to the defense that Conte had?
Yeah, but you could say that Vertonghen and Alderweireld towards the end were aging, and he didn't have the likes of Romero. Maybe didn't have the likes of Kulusevski. I mean, look, we went 2 seasons without signing anybody. I mean, the money's been there.
With Ali and Eric, the top form Ali and Eric. And we had Moussa Dembele, one of the best midfielders there's ever been.
Exactly.
And we're firing Sissoko, and we had Harry Kane, we had Son, we had an on-form Lloris, we had a decent left back. I said we had an on-form Lloris, a
Lloris
good
is finished
Lloris.
now. Let's be honest.
He's still the same player.
But we had
same player.
But we had Vertonghen. Yeah, but he's not what he was back then. But we had Vertonghen and Alderweireld. They were arguably one of the best Premier League centre back partnerships there's ever been.
But raging towards the end, I think it's clear to see now.
They're still much better than what we've got now. You count up the amount of individual errors.
Better than Romero?
From players.
Yeah, better than Romero.
Oh yeah.
You think so?
Oh,
yes.
Well, even with him aging towards the end.
Come on.
I'll just put the question out there. I like a good debate with Ben.
I think Romero's a bit overrated, to be honest, but anyway, that's another debate.
Yeah, Jan and Toby didn't get sent off every so often or get a yellow card for rash tackles every game. And we had Walker, Trippier, Aurier. I know Aurier wasn't as good. It's still better than options we've had now. Left back, we had Danny Rose, who was very good for a long time. I know we could say we had Davis, but the whole point is 2 players in our back 3 this season, Dyer and Davis, were players who Poch didn't rate, but now they're our first choice players.
Yeah, I agree.
How you can say this team is better? I can't understand it at all.
Fair enough. I think it's clear to see in terms of, I mean, the money spent, but I think at the same time, I think the recruitment has definitely been poor.
Paul Mitchell as well, and Conte had the fraud Paratici.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think
you end up in jail before you know anyway. So.
Yeah, definitely. Comment from Alex. Levy wanted to sell us and move out to Stratford. How can any Spurs fans trust Levy? Well, we can't. We have gone from title challengers to a white lane, and now we can't even get a shot on target. I mean, yeah, I'd also put that on the manager because, as I said, they picked the team, they picked the tactics. I mean, Davis, like you said, Davis and Dyer, yes, there isn't much options, but Conte was still, and probably the same as Levy, still the one picking them. I mean, if you don't like it may sound stupid, but
who else you got? Tanganga and Sanchez.
Put a bit of trust in the. I'm not saying play Sanchez. I don't like him, but put some trust in the youth academy, maybe. I mean, I want a manager who works with the youth academy.
But you say that, but then Mourinho. I remember there was massive calls back in the day with Mourinho to play Troy Parrott. Do you remember?
Yeah.
And then he played Troy Parrott.
Yeah, that's right.
Wasn't that good? And everyone was like, "Oh, Mourinho was right." So I think I'm not saying don't play young players because I've said that argument before, but it's not always the answer because you have no idea what you're going to get.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
No, I think everything's interesting. But I've got a statistic here to back me up slightly. Spending under our last 3 managers. This is interesting in a way because it can be taken negatively or positively. Mourinho had 131 million spent on him on 10 players. Nuno had only 57 million spent on him on 5 players. Antonio Conte had 192 million on 14 players, though some people said that's too big, which is the total altogether. since Poch has left, the
Exactly.
380. I mean, I don't even think Poch had that in the whole time he was in charge. But, you know, my point kind of is that we said last summer that we need like a backup goalkeeper, we need left wing back, we need a right wing back, we need a centre back, we need this, we need that, we need that. Every position was kind of filled. It's just for me whether the quality, and that comes down to recruitment. So where's your thoughts on the recruitment overall? I mean, how any fans can think the recruitment's good is beyond me, but far away.
Incompetent. We have an incompetent recruitment department. And I think Harry made a really good point. Paul Mitchell, when he was in charge of our recruitment, bought us Dele Alli, Toby Alderweireld, and Heung-min Son. And I think the biggest difference, obviously, listening to you guys talk about Poch and Mourinho and Conte and things like that, I think the biggest thing was that Paul Mitchell knew Pochettino and his demands. We know Poch wanted Wijnaldum. He ended up with Sissoko. He wanted Mane. He ended up with George, Kevin, and Kudu. He wanted, he wanted Morgan Schneiderlin. Ended up with Benjamin Stambouli. He wanted Musacchio. He ended up with Fazio. Do you know what I mean? So
you just ring the names.
Goes back.
Honestly,
there's so many, so many. Obviously, Mourinho wanted Skriniar. Ended up with Rodon. As Ben said, Conte wanted Bastoni.
Yeah.
Ended up with Longley, and it's like, come on, how many more? Poch wanted Diaz.
Do you remember Bruno Fernandes?
Bruno, got Lascelles.
So yeah, exactly. And the worst bit is if we bought Diaz, Bruno, and Dybala, at that time we'd have won the league. 100% would have won the league. And that's the most frustrating thing. Our recruitment has not been good enough. For one reason or another, it's not worked out for a lot of players. But if I look at certain young players now, 5 years ago, we would have been in the conversation for Jude Bellingham, Declan Rice,
yeah, that's true.
Alex Scott at Bristol City. Well, I mean, Grealish. We tried to get Grealish. We were sniffing around that Daniel Levy decided 3 million plus Josh Onuma was a good deal. But I look at like Jude, Rice, Alex Scott in particular. 3 young English players 5 years ago, all over them. Absolutely. Oh, we're in the conversation now. Million miles off.
Yeah.
I
love this comment.
And we go on like lack of options. I don't actually think we've got a lack of options. I just think we've got lack of quality. I think Ben hit the nail on the head where it's been a bit unfortunate. Like you can't odds having like 2-3 injuries in the same position. It's a bit of a freak in certain aspects. But yeah, I think from a recruitment point of view, it's been awful. I mean, the summer recruitment, I think every Spurs fan was going, bloody hell, we've had a good window here. We've signed Premier League proven players. Really? Well, you look at Basuma.
We filled every position in a way. You look at players like Basuma, Richarlison, Perisic, big names.
So you look at Basuma, 25 million for any
what a deal
midfielder in the Premier League, and you're going, fuck me, that's a great deal. Yeah. And he was up there with one of Brighton's best players, tore us apart at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium last season. Richarlison filled a couple of gaps. Filled 2. Typical Tottenham, filled 2 gaps instead of 1.
Funny
backup goalkeeper, we've got Fraser Forster. He's done well. The age on him concerned me because he's the same age as Hugo Lloris, so it's absolutely pointless signing someone of the same age.
I actually like Fraser Forster. He's done all right.
Don't get me wrong, love big praise, but
the end of the season,
in the summer we're still going to need another goalkeeper.
Yeah, it's true.
Possibly 2 now, so absolutely pointless. I just think our recruitment has just not been anywhere near good. I look at clubs like Leicester, Brighton, Fulham this season. Unbelievable recruitment. They've done their due diligence on their players, and what they've done is they've brought in players, firstly, that the manager wants in that will fit what he's doing, and secondly, they've also gone, well, if it doesn't quite fit them, well, okay, we know we've still got a half decent player here. So if, in Brighton's case, if the manager does go, we'll get a manager in that actually fits our philosophy and our club philosophy.
What
and
Brighton
I think they've done that really well. I think, like I said, there's very few clubs that do that. I know Swansea do it. I know Barnsley do it. as well in terms of recruiting managers that fit the club philosophy. So, but I think obviously to answer your question, recruitment's been awful, wasted money, it seems, on players that just haven't worked out. So I think we need to actually change the recruitment department at Tottenham. We need to change the person who is basically our chief scout or our head of recruitment, because it's clearly not working. It clearly is not working. Clement Longley is a prime example. I think he's okay as a defender, half decent ball playing centre half, but just too slow for the Premier League. He can't play. He gets done really, really easily. And I was at the Preston game in the FA Cup, and I'm watching the game, and I'm going, if I'm Ryan Lowe, we had, who was it? Dyer, Sanchez, Dyer, and Longley at the back, I think, or it was Tanganga. No, it was Tanganga, Sanchez, and Longley, right, at back three. If I'm Ryan Lowe, I'm saying just clip the ball, channel it every single time, get them, because the back three could not handle it. Get it up to the two big lads and just ruffle them up. We genuinely couldn't handle it for the first half in particular. And then obviously Sonny's quality shone through. But, it's worrying that you're going to a championship side and we're worrying about our centre halves dealing with, long balls over. You've got to be able to do that. You've got to be able to just deal with it. And I think the biggest reason why I personally don't want the gaffer back, Poch, I don't want him let down again. Yep. Because if he gets let down again, we're all going to remember the fact he's been let down again, and not remember the amazing, the unbeaten season at White Hart Lane, the Champions League run, and everything else. So that's the only reason I don't want him back, because I don't think it's right now. But I think as well, going off like the young player debate, I think there's a fine balance. I think Mourinho. He's been around football long enough. He knew Tanganga was ready. Unfortunately for him, it's not worked out. He knew Captain Scarlet, as I call him. He knew Dane Scarlett was one that would be special. I think he reminds me so much of Marcus Rashford. But he knew he was ready. And so obviously get that kudos off Mourinho, I think says a lot from a player's perspective, because Mourinho's been there, seen it and done it. Obviously Poch was the one that brought in Oliver Skipp into the team, and things like that. So yeah, we all want young players to come through, but actually as fans, we treat them probably harsher than the big multi-million-pound signings because they're one of our own. I've seen it over the years, especially with the likes of Jake Livermore and
big up, mate. I know this guy. Don't worry.
So it's one of those whereby our recruitment needs to be better and we need to get it right. But I think that comes from the recruitment team necessarily, and not so much the manager, whoever that might be. Levy, yes, he'll have the final say on it because he's the one probably writing the checks or sending the faxes over. But, the recruitment department have got to do better.
I've got my own thoughts on next manager, to be honest. But I think people getting jealous of what happens at Arsenal in the sense they've had a young manager who's come in and succeeded, let's say, because I think Arsenal win the title. I hate to say this.
Just a year ago, we're ahead of them.
I know, but I think because they've seen what happened at Arsenal, people are like, oh, now we want a young manager who's progressive and stuff. And then they look to Poch and they think, oh, maybe Poch can come back and repeat what he did before, but they see it through this time. Or we bring in like a Nagelsmann, who again is only 35, 36, or another young manager that's been banded around, and he'll come and immediately will copy Arsenal's model, and we'll have the same sort of success again and be challenging again and blah, blah, blah. Obviously, number one, it's not necessarily going to happen the same way.
We're talking about Tottenham Hotspur.
Yeah, it's Tottenham. Number two, Levy, after year two, if he doesn't get top four, he might sack him.
Gone. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Because that's always a big possibility. That happened at the AVB, I remember, because in my video this morning, speaking about Nagelsmann, I referenced AVB, who came in as a manager who didn't make fifth in his first season, and the second season was all falling apart. We weren't going to make the top four, and he put in Sherwood the rest of the season because he was way off the top four. We're losing game 6-0. But at the end of the day, AVB, even though he was my favourite manager, I don't think he was backed either. And he lost a lot of big players, including Bale, of course. But I think people are seeing Arsenal and thinking we can copy that model. And I bring this point up because you look at someone like Harry Redknapp, who was at Spurs for 3 years. If he was back, he could have succeeded. He wasn't necessarily, I'm not saying bring Redknapp back, by the way, but he wasn't necessarily a young, progressive manager. It's just a manager who had a plan and a certain way of playing and a certain style. Because he was more of like a hands around the player sort of manager and more old school, right? And we still finished 4th twice in 3 seasons under him. And I still think Redknapp's football was better than Pochettino's personally. I'm more fond of his sort of style of football than Pochettino's. But that's just my personal opinion. I don't think there was much between Poch and Redknapp's tenures in terms of like finishes. I mean, Poch got more years than Redknapp, but if I could average it out, it's about the same for me. And so I think the next manager, whoever comes in, what needs to happen at this football club is Levy needs to say, give the manager and the director of football, whoever they are together, or it's say like Mitchell, theoretically say it's Mitchell and Poch through some miracle. Let's just put this out as like as a theoretical thing. Give them say 150 million, let's say, or 200 million, and say, look, you go buy players you want, as long as you don't break this 200 million pound budget, and they can go and do that rather than Levy dipping into this pot every summer, buying a Spence or buying a Danjuma on loan or this sort of thing,
or sticking plasters, as I like to say.
Because it's like, to me, at Tottenham, when I look at it, it's like there's a big pot of, say, money, and then the manager goes and grabs, say, 50 million of it and goes buy one player. The director of football dips in his hand and goes, oh, I like this player, I'll go spend this much. And then Levy's like, oh, you know what, we need to sign a young player to sell on in like a few years. Oh, let's go spend 20 million on Spence. So it's like there's one big pot and everyone's just picking out of it rather than being like what's the word? Everyone pulling the same direction, going after one player, let's say, right? It's almost like there's all these different people dipping into one pot to buy different players. That's what it feels like to me. And also another caveat, I think, with Arteta that people are forgetting is he bought a 28-year-old Trossard in January, and a Jorginho how old was Jorginho? Like 30-something? For like 10 million.
But must be out of those.
If you guys remember, we went for Malinowski, or Conte won Malinowski. And Levy wasn't prepared to pay like 12, 15 million because he was like 29 years old. Like, if we get to that point again under Pochettino or under like Nagelsmann, do you think Levy's going to buy an experienced player after what's happened this January? I don't believe that at all. And I don't think you can win games or football nowadays just having young players. You can win, you can get to like the top 4 maybe. But I think to make it over the line, you need some experience in the squad. And this whole notion of we need young players to develop is great. I'm not saying don't buy young players, but it needs to be experience around them. It needs to be like a mix.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Yeah.
And answering this comment from Chile about what's your first and most important step. I mean, there's a lot of Tottenham, and we'd be there for longer than 16 months going through that, first few bits on the list. But for me, I think installing that positivity in the dressing room, assuring that, I'm not someone who has this big ego, and I think it's working with younger players. I mean, I don't know what's happened to the youth academy, but I just go in there and go positivity, try and encourage them, play for the fans, because I don't think sometimes that heart's there. I'd like to go through a few comments I've seen recently from Matthew. I find interesting. First one, I've never considered this, by the way, and it didn't even come to my head. Imagine if you had merch like Scarfy's first thought, you could do it because it's a good idea. Well,
you should do a scarf or something.
Yes, guys, actually, yeah. Oh, dude,
Yeah.
you give me ideas now. Harry's giving me ideas as well. I love it. And another comment I love again from Matthew. So thank you for tuning in today, Matthew. I break up from college on Wednesday, and I can't wait to sit on my backside and watch Harry's podcast. And Harry's a massive legend that supports Spurs on Day by Day. Great to hear. Glad you've enjoyed. I love the enthusiasm. I must admit, I'm finding it hard watching Spurs. But to wrap this up, I'm going to put you on the spots, all of you, starting with Ben. I don't know if I did it last time you were on, but top 3 managers for, let's say, let's go for the summer. Top 3 managers from Tottenham, 1 to 3. 1 your favourite, third favourite. You want doesn't have to be that. But what you want?
Nagelsmann, De Zerbi, and Arne Slot.
Okay, fair enough. Harry?
Oh, you're gonna hate me for this one, because I believe that we need a manager who works with rubbish players. So I'm saying Sean Dyche number 1, Nagelsmann number 2, yeah, and Gallardo, is that his name? Gallardo?
Yeah.
Him
That's
number 3.
yeah. You
Sorry,
baffle.
I've been pushing
You've
Sean
lost
Dyche
me.
for like ages. I can't not say this.
You've lost me.
Yeah.
No, fair enough. Is that your 3?
Yeah.
Yeah, you've lost me there. Where's go on?
Brendan Rodgers, Julian Nagelsmann, Mauricio Pochettino.
Okay, fair enough. For me, Nagelsmann's got to be on there. Poch has got to be on there. Third one I'm going to throw in there. I think it's a difficult one. I'm going to throw Thomas Frank in there. I'm a big fan of his. I think I've done well with what he's done at Brentford. I think recruitment has been also fantastic. But last but not least, 7 days' time. Obviously, we play Everton. So again, I'm going to put you on the spot. I want to know your prediction. Ben, you probably know what mine's going to be. But Ben, I'll come to you first. Your prediction for Everton 7 days' time. It's hard to think about it. I mean, with a lot going on at the moment, but in 7 days' time, we go to Goodison Park. Far away. Score prediction.
I always cop out and give 2. So I'm going to say 1-0 Everton or 3-0 Spurs. That's my prediction.
3-0 Spurs. Okay, fair enough. Harry?
1-0 to Everton.
Fair enough. Wes?
Right. Well, firstly, if we lose to this lot, mate, we're not even in the mud. We're in quicksand. Yeah, because this Everton team is abysmal.
Yeah, but like
done better recently.
It's
under Sean Dyche.
It is so bad. Like, there's this whole
Allardyce.
notion of that spending money will guarantee you success. Look at Everton. I'm going 2-1 Spurs for score prediction.
So you think we'll get a new manager bounce? Or I don't know if it's a new manager, but you know.
No. I just think we'll beat Everton because they are that bad. They are that bad. Like, they are awful. Look at the money that they have. Yeah. Look at the money they have pumped. They spent $500 million.
They beat Arsenal like a few months.
That was new manager bounce. Like,
and they drew to Chelsea.
Drew to Chelsea. It's an impressive point.
Yeah. But again, Chelsea don't even know what their best 11 is at the minute because they've got 150 wingers that they're trying to fit into a team. I think with Everton, like I say, spent $500 million and they are worse. Like, that takes some doing. I know we've spent a few quid under the last few managers, right? But honestly, to spend $500 million and chuck money at it like Everton have done, mate, if we don't beat this lot, we're in quicksand, like I say, because they are awful.
Thank you. My memory's awful. So 2-1 Spurs, if I'm correct.
2-1 Spurs, yeah.
Harry, you said 1-0 Everton?
Yeah.
Ben, what did you say? I can't remember at all.
You said 1-0 or 2 on top, I think.
Yeah.
Go try and go for 1. Go for 1. Make it interesting.
2-0 Spurs.
Yeah, I thought you'd go for that. Fair enough. Yeah, so my prediction. I mean, you know, I said that, I said last week, I think this is a game where we're going to slip up. I don't know why. I shouldn't really fear going to Goodison Park, on a Monday night. But with Tottenham, I think they're winning the game, sadly. They need every point. I think they go for it and just be very clinical. 3-1 Everton. As much as I hate to say it.
3-1? Oh, wow.
3-1 Everton, yeah. I think they have
I said 1-0.
I know, yeah. I hope I'm wrong. Spurs, please prove me wrong. Prove my negativity
thing is,
wrong.
Sean Dyche's teams are very difficult to play against. So
no, they are.
It's going to be horrible. Honestly, that game's horrible. I'm not.
I think going to Goodison Park at the moment, they're good form under Sean Dyche there. Yeah. I think that everything for today's show. So thank you all for coming on, and thank you, Harry and Wes, for your debuts on the channel.
Yeah. Thanks
Harry,
for coming on as well, mate. Yeah.
No, thank you for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure. But Harry, where can people find you? I certainly know, but some people may not.
Some people may not.
Some people may not. Just saying.
Okay. If you want to follow me on the socials at HazSpur92 for the Levy slanting every day. And if you want to follow our YouTube channel, it's HazSpurTV. So it's pretty similar. You can't get it wrong. Yeah. So please, guys, like and subscribe. And fingers crossed, I'm trying to get a video out tomorrow, probably a stream tomorrow evening. If not, Sundays at 5 p.m. is my new slots. And because now we're not playing 2 games a week now, so things are a bit,
bit easier.
a bit more relaxed, I guess.
What a dig, by the way. Just let you know, some people may not know. Same with me. Yeah, where can people find you?
Right, strap yourselves in. This is a long one.
Right,
Twitter at Wezo10. I usually say I am the unofficial Moussa Dembele fan account because he's the greatest of all time.
That's true.
Absolutely loved him. Wish he could come back. Need to see him grace. A Spurs shirt one last time. Absolutely loved him. So yeah, don't tend to tweet too much. Don't really get caught up in it. I often just appear on people's shows and they tag me in it on Twitter, to be fair. Or I retweet stuff about Moussa Dembele. That's about as interesting as my Twitter life gets. Instagram at Wezo32. Usually see me up and down the country following Spurs as much as I can. Love it. Absolutely love it. Go with my dad all the time. So at Wezo32 on Instagram. I also have my own podcast that I've got up and running fairly recently. It's a WM32 football podcast. Where I've interviewed fans of different football clubs. So I've had a Burnley fan, a QPR fan, and unfortunately yesterday I had an Arsenal fan. But no, the show went really, really well. WM32 football podcast on YouTube. And then just to round it off, I have my own football coaching business in Milton Keynes area, Dele Alli country. For those that don't know where it is, just think of Dele Alli. And yeah, just helping the next generation of young boys and girls, trying to help them develop. So it's Kickoff Football Academy on Facebook, Kofa MK on Instagram, and TikTok as well. There you go, sorted. That's a wrap.
Fair enough. No, thank you, Wes. I've seen your appearance on a couple of Spurs podcasts recently. I thought you'd done a fantastic job.
Yeah, I see you a lot on Molly's.
You kind of took my place on Saturday when I wasn't here. So, you've done a fantastic job.
Listen, when it comes to Tottenham podcast, I am like a super sub.
Literally, I see you everywhere.
Honestly, ask Polly. Polly's the worst for it. I get like
last minute.
You're going for my job.
Super sub, honestly.
I just get you on mine as well, but yeah.
I've got to keep my performance high here. Ben, where can people find you on social media?
On my Twitter handle that you can see on the screen now, basically just ranting about Spurs because they are
Where are my replies?
Depressing state of affair.
Depressing state.
Fair enough. You often see in my replies as well.
I think, honestly, guys, I think Sporting Spurs is like Groundhog Day. To be honest,
every day,
definitely 100%. I mean, England
wake up, something bad happened again.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you all for coming on. It's been absolutely fantastic. You can find me there, Harry Scarf 22. I'm your host. This fairly new podcast, the 8th episode. Fantastic. Thank you all for coming on. Fantastic. Pleasure to do this. But yeah, you can find me, as I said, you've got Harry Scarf 22 there. Also now a football writer for Valve, which I'm quite excited about. You see me on Saturday, co-host 1 of 4 on Park Lane Podcast. I'm back this Saturday, which I'm glad to announce. Wes can't steal my job. You can see him grinning there in the bottom right-hand corner. Sorry to let you know I'm back. They've substituted you, but like Conte needs to do more, but hey ho, he's gone. You can also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. That will be much appreciated. Leave a like. I'm always interested to know your feedback. On Twitter, I've got a couple of collaborations coming soon this week, I think, as well, which I'm quite excited about. So watch this space. Have a good evening all. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. But as we always say, on this podcast, come on you Spurs.
Come on you Spurs.